When you cross 60, something changes deep inside you. You begin to notice things you once ignored. The little twinges in your joints, the extra time it takes to catch your breath, and yes, even the itch that doesn't seem to go away. I've lived over 75 winters, and let me tell you, nothing teaches you more about life than the slow ticking of time in your body. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm just an old man who's seen a lot, lost a lot, and learned more than I ever asked for. So when I tell you this, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to wake you up. There's an itch, a persistent, quiet itch that may seem like nothing. But if it's on a certain part of your body, especially after 60, you need to listen. Not with fear, but with attention. Because that little signal might be your body's final warning. Let me tell you about my friend Joseph, a strong man, worked with his hands all his life. He was the kind of fellow who never complained, not once. But one day over coffee, he scratched at his back, right between his shoulder blades. He looked at me and laughed. "It's been itching there for weeks," he said. "Must be dry skin." But it wasn't. A few months later, he was gone. Liver cancer. It had crept in silently, without pain. Just that one annoying itch that wouldn't stop. That was all. His body tried to whisper before it screamed, and he didn't listen. We brushed it off as nothing, because that's what men of our age do. We endure. But there comes a point when enduring becomes ignorance. That's the mistake. After 60, the skin becomes more than just a covering. It starts sending messages, subtle ones. And when that itch appears on your upper back, or around the chest, or even under the ribs, don't just shrug it off, especially if it's deep, if it feels like it's not on the surface, but beneath. That kind of itch doesn't get better with lotion. It doesn't go away with scratching. It lingers, and it nags. And it could mean something far more serious than dryness. You see, as we age, the liver begins to wear out, especially if we've lived full lives. Maybe we drank a little too much in our youth. Maybe we took medicines that wore it down. Maybe we just didn't know better. But the liver's pain doesn't show like other organs. It hides. It hides behind fatigue, behind yellowing skin, behind a damn itch that shows up and stays. That's why I'm telling you this, because I've seen what happens when people ignore that sign. It's never loud. It's never dramatic. It's quiet and fatal. I still remember the day my neighbor Martha came to me with tears in her eyes. She was scratching her side constantly. I asked her if she was all right. She said it had been bothering her for over a month. She'd been using all kinds of creams. I looked her in the eyes and told her, "Martha, go see a doctor. Don't wait." It turned out her gallbladder was inflamed. Her bile ducts were blocked. She had no idea. Neither did her doctors at first. They treated her for skin conditions. But the problem was inside, and it had been giving her a sign. She's still with us today because she listened, barely in time. Now I know how we are. We don't like hospitals. We don't like bad news. And when you're over 60, you start hearing a lot of it, so we avoid. We tell ourselves it's nothing. But what if that itch really is something? What if it's your body's way of crying out before the end? I don't mean to be grim. I mean to be real, because I've been there. I had the same itch, right under my ribs. It drove me mad for weeks. I tried oils, balms, hot baths. Nothing helped. I finally gave in and saw a specialist. They found early-stage liver damage. Years of medication had done it. I had no idea. That itch saved my life. If I had waited, I might not be here sharing this with you now. It's a cruel trick. The most dangerous signs are often the quietest. No pain, no swelling, just an itch. But your body is not your enemy. It wants to survive. It wants to fight. It gives you signs, even if they seem small. The problem is, we treat the surface and ignore the core. But after 60, there's no room for ignoring. Every signal matters. Every discomfort deserves your attention. I speak to you not as a preacher, but as a fellow traveler. I've buried friends who laughed off symptoms. I've watched family ignore the obvious. And I've seen the heartbreak when it's too late. So if you feel that itch, especially in places you've never felt it before, and it lingers for more than a week or two, do not wait, especially if you notice weight loss, yellowing of your skin or eyes, or unusual fatigue along with it. That's your body waving a red flag. Don't pull the curtain on it. I know it's scary. I know the thought of hearing bad news can freeze you. But fear doesn't prevent the truth. It only delays the chance to do something about it. And at our age, every day matters. Every hour is a gift. You have people who care about you. People who would rather face the truth with you than lose you without warning. So go. Get it checked. Let the doctor tell you it's nothing. That's the best news you can hope for. But if it is something, then maybe, just maybe, you caught it in time. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm not trying to make you anxious. I'm trying to keep you alive. You see, after 60, death stops being a distant idea. It becomes part of your everyday. It walks beside you, sometimes quietly, sometimes close. But you can still keep it waiting. You can still stretch the days. Add more time to see your grandchildren, more sunrises, more laughter, but only if you listen. You might feel silly going to a doctor over an itch, but trust me, it's not silly, it's smart, it's brave, it's necessary. Let me be the old fool who went in for nothing. That's better than being the wise man who waited too long. Because once you're in that hospital bed, once the machines start beeping and the nurses start talking quietly outside your door, you'll wish you had done something sooner. I've seen that look. I never want you to wear it. So hear me. If you're past 60, if there's an itch that won't leave, if it's not on the skin but beneath, if it's near the upper back, or under the ribs, or around the chest, don't shrug it off. Don't drown it in creams. Don't wait for it to hurt. Just go. Ask for a checkup, blood tests, imaging, whatever they need. Your body is trying to help you. Don't turn your back on it. Life is short, but it doesn't have to be shorter than it needs to be. You've made it this far, through storms, through struggles, through heartbreak. Don't let a small itch take it all away. You've got more stories to tell, more people to love, more mornings to wake up to, and all it takes is listening to what your body is whispering. So my friend, promise me this. Next time your body sends you a message, no matter how small, listen, trust your instinct, respect your years, and never ever ignore the itch. Because after 60, your body speaks in whispers. And if you don't hear them, the silence that follows may be forever. Now let's clear some common questions. How can caregivers and family members be better educated to recognize non-obvious symptoms of declining health in their loved ones? My friend, let me tell you something that comes not from books, but from years lived and lessons earned through heartache and hope alike. When it comes to caring for our loved ones, especially as they grow older or weaker, the most dangerous enemy is not always disease itself. The true danger lies in what we do not see or choose not to see. You ask how caregivers and family members can be better educated to recognize non-obvious symptoms of declining health. That is a fine question, one that deserves not only careful thought, but also the weight of experience. Now, I have watched proud men shrink into their beds and vibrant women slowly lose their light, not in an instant, but over weeks and months while their families stood by saying, "She's just tired," or "He's been moody lately." It is not because they did not love. On the contrary, they loved so deeply that they sometimes chose comfort over truth. The truth, you see, is often wrapped in subtle signs. A slight change in walking, a hesitation in speech, a shift in appetite, or an odd forgetfulness. These are whispers of the body and mind that something is amiss, and if we are not trained to hear them, we lose precious time. Education in this regard must go beyond medical pamphlets or brief doctor's visits. We must learn to listen with more than ears. We must learn to observe with our hearts and our memories. You must know the rhythm of your loved one's life to sense when it falls out of step. That means paying attention to the little things. Does your mother no longer bake her favorite pie on Sundays as she once did? Does your father stare at the television but not seem to watch it anymore? These are not just quirks of aging. They may be signs of depression, early dementia, or even silent strokes. In my time, I've sat beside many a dying man who said to me, "If only someone had noticed earlier." And I've held the hands of family members racked with guilt, whispering, "How could I have missed it?" What they needed was not just more love. They already had that. What they needed was understanding. They needed the tools to interpret the quiet language of decline. That begins with education rooted in real-life stories and shared experiences. Community groups, support circles, and accessible workshops that teach not just the textbook symptoms, but how those symptoms look in real life. A change in posture, less interest in grooming, a new way of smiling that hides pain. These are not things you find in a medical chart. You find them in lived knowledge passed from person to person, generation to generation. And let me tell you, the education we seek should be infused with empathy. There is no room for cold clinical detachment here. We are dealing with people we love, people who once held our hands when we were small and now need us to hold theirs. So when you learn with compassion, be curious, not judgmental. Ask gentle questions. Have you been sleeping well? Have you noticed anything different lately? Create a space where your loved one feels safe enough to share their discomforts, no matter how small. I remember once my wife, God rest her soul, stopped going to her garden, said the sun was too much for her. It seemed like a simple preference, but I asked more, listened more. It turned out she was too weak to stoop, her muscles failing quietly. That small act of asking led to tests that found a serious vitamin deficiency and early signs of kidney trouble. Do not underestimate the power of stories, real stories, the kind passed around kitchen tables or shared in online forums. These stories help people recognize patterns in their own lives. I always tell new caregivers to find someone who has walked the path before, someone with tired eyes and an open heart. Ask them what they wish they'd known. You'll be surprised how often the signs were there, but hidden beneath the ordinary. And let us not forget technology, but use it wisely. Apps and online tools can help track medications, monitor behavior changes, and provide reminders for checkups. But they are aids, not replacements for human connection. Now here is something important. Culture plays a role too. In some families, illness is hidden, pain is downplayed, especially among our elders who come from a generation that believed in toughing things out. We must be sensitive to this. Sometimes the non-obvious symptom is not in the body, but in the silence of a proud man who will not admit he is afraid. That is when you must lean in, be patient, and speak the language of trust. Let them know that acknowledging weakness does not diminish their strength, it reveals it. I have also learned that education must begin early, not when the crisis arrives, but when things are still calm. Learn about the conditions common in your family. Talk to doctors before there is a diagnosis. Read. Ask questions. Build a small notebook if you must. Not for paranoia, but for preparedness, like a lantern lit before the storm. I once had a friend whose brother had Huntington's disease. The family dismissed his strange behaviors as stubbornness until the symptoms grew too large to ignore. Had they known what to look for earlier, they might have saved him from years of frustration and helped him find dignity in his decline. Let us teach our young ones too. Let them see how to care. Let them witness the importance of presence. That will not only prepare them to spot the signs, but also to face aging and illness without fear. And let us teach them that sometimes the symptoms are not physical at all. A sudden loneliness, a withdrawal from conversation, an anxious fidgeting. These can be signs of mental and emotional decline that are just as urgent as any fever or fall. In all this, never forget that to truly see someone, you must care enough to look closely, not just with your eyes, but with your soul. And sometimes the most important thing is not what you notice, but what you do once you notice. Take action. Speak up. Follow up. Don't let uncertainty turn into delay. And if you are wrong, so be it. Better to be safe than silent. So yes, my friend, we must educate caregivers and family members, not just in clinics and classrooms, but around dinner tables, in community centers, through honest conversations and shared moments of reflection. We must teach not only with words, but with love in action. For in the end, it is not just about extending life. It is about preserving the dignity, the joy, and the quiet strength of those we hold dear. And if we do this right, we honor not only their lives, but our own. What can elderly individuals do differently today to ensure they are listening more closely to their body's quiet signals? Now that is a question worth pondering. What can we old folks do? What can we do differently to listen more closely to the quiet signals of our own bodies? I tell you this not as some scholar in a white coat, but as a man who has lived through aches, scares, and second chances. I have walked through the seasons of life and learned that the body, much like an old friend, speaks softly at first. It doesn't shout until it's been ignored for far too long. And if we truly want to grow old with grace and dignity, then we must train ourselves to listen before the whisper turns into a cry. Now let me be plain about it. When we were younger, we could get away with a lot. Skipping sleep, eating recklessly, brushing off pains, and always saying, "I'll be fine tomorrow." But as the years add up, the body changes its tone. It starts sending hints rather than alarms. A strange tightness here, a slight dizziness there, a shorter breath walking up the same stairs we used to conquer with ease. These are not just parts of growing old. These are clues, messages, signals telling us to slow down, to take notice, to ask questions. And too often we dismiss them out of fear or pride. That has to change. One thing we elders must do is start treating our bodies not like burdens, but like lifelong companions. You see, if you had a horse that carried you for 70 years, wouldn't you speak kindly to it? Feed it well? Notice when it limps? The body is no different. We must honor it. That starts with mindfulness. Not the trendy kind you see in magazines, but the simple act of checking in. Every morning, take a moment. Sit still. Breathe. Ask yourself, how do I feel today compared to yesterday? Notice the joints, the breath, the eyes, the appetite. It doesn't take long and it costs nothing. But that daily check-in can tell you a lot if you're honest with yourself. And honesty, my friend, is the next step. You must be willing to admit when something is off. I've seen too many good men and women pretend all is well while their bodies wave red flags like a windstorm. I used to be that man. I ignored numbness in my hand for weeks, called it just old age. Turned out it was a warning sign of nerve compression. Could have done permanent damage if I had waited longer. But I learned, and now I tell others. Don't let your pride silence your body's voice. Another thing we must do is slow down our pace. Not stop, mind you, but slow down enough to feel. In today's world, even elders are caught in the rush. Appointments here, obligations there. But when we move too fast, we miss the small details. We miss the fact that our left foot is swelling more than the right, or that we're thirstier than usual, or that our balance is just a little off. These signs are subtle. They hide in the quiet moments. So we must create those moments. Take walks, not just for exercise, but to be present. Sit outside, listen to the wind, but also listen inward. Trust me, the body speaks more clearly when the noise of the world is quiet. Now let us talk about journaling. I never thought I'd be the type to keep a health journal, but I'll tell you this. It saved my skin more than once. Every evening, I jot down a few things. What I ate, how I slept, any new feelings or discomforts. Doesn't have to be a novel, just a few lines. Over time, patterns begin to emerge. You see things you wouldn't otherwise notice. That nagging heartburn that happens after certain meals. That knee pain when it rains. These small notes become a map, a way to track the body's language. And when you bring it to a doctor, it helps more than any fancy scan. Let's not forget the importance of asking questions. A younger person may shrug off something and think they're invincible. But we elders should not be afraid to ask, even if it feels small. That odd flutter in the chest, that strange pressure behind the eyes. Ask someone. Call the doctor. Talk to your pharmacist. Talk to your neighbor who's been through it. You'd be surprised how often the smallest symptom turns out to be the body's first line of defense trying to alert you. No question is too silly when your health is on the line. And while we're on the subject, don't rely solely on pain to tell you what's wrong. Pain is a loud symptom, yes, but many of the dangerous things start silently. Diabetes can creep in without a whisper. So can high blood pressure. Even cancer sometimes grows in total silence. So go to your checkups, even if you feel fine. Do your blood work. Get your screenings. Think of them as conversations with your body that you couldn't otherwise have. When the doctor reads your test results, he's translating what your body's trying to say in its own quiet language. I'll also say this. Surround yourself with people who listen too. Sometimes others see changes in us before we do. Your spouse might notice your posture is slumping more. Your daughter might catch you repeating the same story a few too many times. Don't brush them off. These observations come from love, and love, as I've learned, is one of the best mirrors for truth. If someone who cares says, "You don't seem quite yourself lately," don't take offense. Take notice. And finally, stay curious. That's right. Curiosity isn't just for the young. It's the secret to aging well. Learn about what's happening inside you. Read, ask, watch. The more you understand how the body works, the better you become at hearing its language. Knowledge gives your instincts a backbone. It sharpens your awareness. You don't have to be a doctor to understand when something's off. You just have to be someone who pays attention. So what can we elderly do differently today? We can slow down, we can check in, we can document, we can ask questions, we can listen not just with ears but with intention. We can replace stubbornness with curiosity. We can value presence over performance. And most of all, we can treat our bodies not as relics of our past glory, but as sacred vessels still carrying us through a life that has much to give. The truth is, the body never stops speaking. The question is whether we are humble and wise enough to listen. And I believe we can be. We've made it this far, haven't we? Through storms and sunrises, through losses and triumphs. Now let's use all we've learned, all the patience we've earned, and listen just a little more closely. It might just give us more days to watch the sky turn gold, to hear the laughter of children, and to hold the hand of someone we love. And in the end, that's what it's all about. When the body begins whispering with symptoms like this, what kind of life reflection or action becomes most urgent before the window of time closes? Now you're asking the kind of question that sinks deep into a person's bones. What kind of life reflection or action becomes most urgent when the body starts to whisper with symptoms? Those soft, unsettling signs that something's beginning to shift inside us. Let me tell you, that's not a question for the young, who still believe in endless tomorrows. That's a question for those of us who've walked a long road and know what it means when the body starts to change its tone. I've felt it myself more than once, and each time it lit a fire under my feet, reminded me that the window of time is not made of steel, but of fragile glass that can crack without warning. The truth is, when the body begins whispering, it is not just a health matter. It is a spiritual and emotional summons. It is the soul tapping on the inside of your ribs saying, "Are you ready?" Ready not just to face illness, but to live more truthfully, more completely, and more intentionally with what time is left. Because when your hand starts to tremble for no clear reason, or your heart races while you sit still, or your sleep becomes restless, it is not always the body's fault alone. Sometimes it is life calling you to pay attention, not just to your flesh, but to your unfinished business, your unsaid words, your unlived dreams. One of the most urgent actions I've learned is to speak. Speak the words that have been trapped inside your chest for too long. You see, we carry around regrets like hidden stones in our pockets. We think we'll have time to say, "I'm sorry." We think there will be a perfect day to tell someone, "I forgive you." Or, "You mattered more than I ever told you." But when the body starts showing signs of fragility, you can't afford to wait. I remember when I had my first real scare, a silent episode that nearly took my breath while I was trimming roses in the yard. My hand clutched my chest and I thought, this could be it. The very next morning, I drove 3 hours to see my brother. We hadn't spoken in years, over something so foolish I cannot even remember what it was. I didn't need a hospital to tell me what was urgent. My heart already knew. Another powerful reflection that rises to the surface is asking yourself, have I really lived by my values, or have I just coasted along? That one stings, because when you slow down, when you're forced to stop and rest due to weakness or pain, you begin to see your life more clearly than ever. The masks fall away, and the question becomes not, how much did I do, but did I do what mattered? Were you kind when it counted? Did you spend your days chasing noise, or did you create peace in your home? These are the thoughts that come not when the body is strong, but when it begins to falter. And those are the thoughts that must be met with courage and action. And let me say this clearly. When the body starts to whisper, you must forgive yourself. That is urgent. Many of us carry shame and disappointment from decades ago. Decisions made in survival, moments where we were not our best selves. But life does not demand perfection. It asks for honesty and grace. You don't need to be young to change your story. You just need to be willing. I've seen people in their 80s mend wounds from their 30s. And those acts of courage, those personal reckonings, often do more for the healing of the body than any pill ever could. Then there is the matter of gratitude. Not the polite kind, but the deep marrow-level gratitude that fills your chest when you realize your heart is still beating despite everything. You wake up one day and realize, I can still see, I can still laugh, I can still hold someone's hand. That shift in perspective becomes urgent when symptoms start to appear. Because once you truly grasp how fragile life is, you start to treasure it in a whole new way. You take more walks, you taste your food, you let your grandchildren talk your ear off about things you don't understand, and you smile because their voices are a kind of music that reminds you that life continues. When the body begins to falter, it's also time to share your wisdom. That's right, not hoard it, not assume no one wants to hear it. I used to think my stories were boring until one day my grandson sat me down and asked, "Grandpa, what scared you the most when you were young?" That one question opened a floodgate, and I realized that the lessons I thought were buried under years of dust were exactly what he needed to hear. If you've lived through love and loss, war and peace, joy and regret, then you have something valuable, and you must share it while you can. Because once the body goes silent, so do all those stories unless you've passed them along. And finally, take action to set things in order. Not just your will, although that matters too, but your daily life. Clean out the things you don't need. Donate what might bless someone else. Organize your memories. Label the old photographs. Write down your favorite recipes. These may seem like small things, but they bring a kind of peace that is powerful. They say, I was here, I lived, and I leave behind not clutter, but care. So what becomes most urgent? Living with presence. Speaking your truth, mending what is broken, loving out loud, listening to your body not just with fear, but with gratitude that it is still speaking at all. These whispers are not warnings of doom. They are invitations. Invitations to show up more fully, to slow down and savor, to make amends, to laugh even as the joints ache, to cry if the tears have been stuck too long, to stop waiting for the right time and start creating meaningful time. I won't pretend it's easy. Facing the body's decline brings a kind of clarity that can be sharp as glass, but it also brings the chance to live more boldly in the moments that remain. And trust me, those moments, no matter how short or how long, are worth everything. I've seen people come alive in their final years in ways they never did when they were young and healthy, because they stopped pretending and started living. So don't ignore the whispers, sit with them, learn from them. Let them lead you not into fear, but into truth. Because the window of time may be closing, yes, but there is still air coming through. There is still light. And as long as you are breathing, there is still something beautiful you can do. Even if it is simply to say, with full heart and open eyes, I'm still here, and I'm not done yet. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.